The Passion of our Lord Jesus Christ, according to Mark.
As soon as morning came, the chief priests with the elders and the scribes, that is, the whole Sanhedrin, held a council. They bound Jesus, led him away, and handed him over to Pilate. Pilate questioned him.
"Are you the king of the Jews?"
He said to him in reply,
You say so.
The chief priests accused him of many things. Again, Pilate questioned him.
"Have you no answer? See how many things they accuse you of."
Jesus gave him no further answer, so that Pilate was amazed. Now, on the occasion of the feast, Pilate used to release to them one prisoner whom they requested. A man called Barabbas was then in prison, along with the rebels who had committed murder in a rebellion. The crowd came forward and began to ask Pilate to do for them as he was accustomed. Pilate answered,
"Do you want me to release to you the king of the Jews?"
For he knew that it was out of envy that the chief priests had handed him over. But the chief priests stirred up the crowd to have him release Barabbas for them instead. Pilate again said to them in reply,
"Then what do you want me to do with the man you call the king of the Jews?"
They shouted repeatedly.
Crucify him!
Pilate said to them.
"Why? What evil has he done?"
They only shouted the louder.
Crucify him!
So Pilate, wishing to satisfy the crowd, released Barabbas to them, and, after he had Jesus scourged, handed him over to be crucified. The soldiers led him away inside the palace, that is, the praetorium, and assembled the whole cohort. They clothed him in purple, and weaving a crown of thorns, placed it on him. They began to salute him with,
Hail, King of the Jews!
and kept striking his head with a reed and spitting upon him. They knelt before him in homage, and when they had mocked him, they stripped him of the purple cloak, dressed him in his own clothes, and led him out to crucify him. They pressed into service a passerby, Simon, a Cyrenian, who was coming in from the country, the father of Alexander and Rufus, to carry his cross. They brought him to the place called Golgotha, which is translated place of the skull. They gave him wine drugged with myrrh, but he did not take it. Then they crucified him and divided his garments by casting lots for them to see what each should take. It was 9 o'clock in the morning when they crucified him. The inscription of the charge against him read, "The King of the Jews." With him they crucified two revolutionaries, one on his right and one on his left. Those passing by reviled him, shaking their heads and saying,
Aha! You who would destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days, save yourself by coming down from the cross.
Likewise, the chief priests with the scribes mocked him among themselves and said,
"He saved others. He cannot save himself. Let the Christ, the King of Israel, come down now from the cross, that we may see and believe."
Those who were crucified with him also kept abusing him. At noon, darkness came over the whole land until 3 in the afternoon. And at 3 o'clock, Jesus cried out in a loud voice,
Eloi, Eloi, lema sabachthani.
which is translated,
My God, why have you forsaken me?
Some of the bystanders who heard it said,
Look, he is calling for Elijah.
One of them ran, soaked a sponge with wine, put it on a reed, and gave it to him to drink, saying,
Wait, let us see if Elijah comes to take him down.
Jesus gave a loud cry and breathed his last. The veil of the sanctuary was torn in two from top to bottom. When the centurion who stood facing him saw how Jesus breathed his last, he said,
Truly, this man was the Son of God.
The Gospel of the Lord.
Our Gospel for this Sunday is the Passion narrative according to St. Mark. We have been reflecting on this important question: what is the good news that is contained in the passion, the suffering, and death of Jesus Christ? The first reading from the prophet Isaiah depicts to us this mysterious servant of God, faithful to God, yet received violently, harshly by his hearers. In the midst of that suffering and senseless violence, what is the good news? The servant of God proclaims that he believes in God. God is my help. God is my vindication. And for as long as I am with God, I will not be put to shame. In the world where people forget principles, faith, commitments, in order to please worldly powers, it is good news to have a servant of God who can bear anything because I believe in God, because God is my help. And it is His approval that I seek, not any worldly approval. We see that in Jesus. That's good news. In the second reading from Paul's letter to the Philippians, the death of Jesus is depicted as part of a whole process of the Son of God's humility, love, freedom, where this Son of God emptied himself in order to be one with us. This is good news. God can go to that extent of losing everything in order to be with us, to gain us. And no person, human person, will ever be alone. That's good news. All of these strands are present in the long narrative of the Passion of Christ in St. Mark. I am inviting you to reflect on the narrative. Go slowly. Pause at every moment, every episode that strikes you. But I want to highlight these two strands that I've already started reflecting on. First, the good news of Jesus' communion with us. Communion with human beings. His suffering, His death are all ways of assuring us you will never be alone. When you read the narrative of Jesus' passion, I'm sure you can identify with Jesus. And you will say, yes, Jesus experienced this. In my own suffering, I know Jesus understands and Jesus is with me. But also recall the many people who suffer in our days. And if you know someone, assure them that Jesus is with them. Recall the different episodes, the many experiences of betrayal. He was already troubled. He had the supper with his friends. But in the supper, he knew he will be betrayed by close disciples. in the garden, while he needed companions, they slept. Judas came, embraced him, not with an embrace of friendship, but an embrace that was a signal to the arresting officers. What a betrayal. Peter, who even denied that he had known Jesus, that he had been part of his group just to save himself. Do you have similar experiences? You can look again at those experiences in a new light. Find the good news. The Son of God experienced that too. And you're being invited to discover Jesus' presence in your harrowing experiences of betrayal from friends, family members, sad to say, even from husbands and wives, from your own children. You're not alone. Jesus is with you. The betrayal by a Pilate who knew that Jesus was innocent, yet his ambition prevailed over his right sense, his right judgment, and he surrendered Jesus to be crucified. What a painful experience. Political expediency becoming the norm for the betrayal of whole communities and even of the whole country. The good news is Jesus is with us. He knows the sufferings of whole communities and even nations. When leaders betray us, there is good news. God is on our side. My dear brothers and sisters, go through the narrative. See how Jesus was there in your own experiences, never leaving you, assuring you, I went through the same thing. And purify your own bitterness and anger, knowing how Jesus faced all of this. In the spirit of the first reading, I will not be put to shame. God is on my side. When Jesus was being insulted by the soldiers, by the passers-by, recall the words of Isaiah. God is my help. Jesus is with you, reminding you, God is our help. This Sunday, we are reminded of that good news. In your trials and sufferings, Jesus is with you. And finally, the good news is, Jesus died. They thought they were killing him. They thought they were depriving him of life. They thought they were taking away his life from him. But from the Last Supper up to his last breath, Jesus gave his life to God and for us. It was not a death of robbing a person of one's life. It was a death where life was given as a gift. That's good news. This is my body for you. This is my blood, the blood of the covenant for you. And hanging on the cross, he prayed. He prayed as one suffering, but he prayed. He remained connected with God, offering even his pains to God. And the centurion saw that this one was truly the Son of God. There is good news in this suffering. Good news that faith endures. The good news that we will never be alone. The good news that life in death is not a thief. Death is not a thief that steals my life away. I can give my life for God and neighbors. The story is familiar to us, but we need to hear it over and over again. And we ask the Spirit of light and wisdom to lead us to a discovery of the good news embedded in the dark suffering and death of Jesus. The word has been exposed. Let us now fulfill it.